So this is part 2 of my testing update, and in this part I'm going to talk about some of the times where we might do asymptomatic testing, so testing on someone who has no symptoms of COVID at all. It can be a bit confusing because you've heard me say a couple times that the test is not very good in people without symptoms and that it doesn't really tell me that they're clear, and that's true. So the times that we would want to test people who don't have any symptoms are really 2 situations. One is that they're in an area that we're really worried there's a bunch of virus circulating, and so we're trying to clamp down on an outbreak right away. So let's say that there was a business or an apartment complex or a school or something like that where there's been a bunch of cases. We might want to test everybody there just so that we can try to figure out how this thing is spreading through that group to clamp down on it faster. So in that case, many of the people test negative. Some of those people truly don't have disease, and maybe some of them we're going to miss. Some of them actually have COVID, but they're going to test negative. But the whole point is to try to catch as many of those cases as possible in that setting to stop that outbreak before it spreads beyond whatever group setting it's in there. And it can teach us a little bit more about the transmission when we know that there's a lot of transmission going on in one group. So it's not that helpful for the individuals being tested necessarily. It's more just giving us information about that transmission setting and helping us stop it. The second one that we would potentially consider is for overall surveillance. So that's where we're trying to do something called sentinel surveillance. Sentinel surveillance is kind of like an early warning system. So it's less accurate. The numbers that we get out of it are not particularly useful. But instead, the idea is to set up a red flag for new situations that we need to keep an eye on. So in sentinel surveillance, it means that we're going out to different areas that aren't necessarily high risk and testing a bunch of people just to see if we find things. And we might move around to different communities, to different settings, workplaces, daycares, schools, long-term care. It really would depend. But the idea there is that you test a large number of people and see how many of them have the infection without knowing it, and see if we notice any clumps anywhere, because that can give us an early understanding of a future outbreak or give us an early understanding about how the disease is passing through different groups without them knowing it. So again, in that case, a negative result for the people that we're testing is not very helpful. It doesn't tell us that they're clear, they don't have disease. The only thing that's helpful there is the positive, because it'll flag stuff early on so that public health can go, whoa, okay, what's going on in this factory? Why are we getting some positives here that we didn't realize? Or, suddenly we notice this age group, there's a whole bunch of positives that we didn't know about. Maybe it's being transmitted through there. So it's possible that in the near future you might hear about public health doing some testing on people without symptoms, but just keep in mind that those people, we're not particularly worried about them. They're not high risk. You don't need to treat them any differently. They don't need to isolate while they're waiting for their test results. We are just trying to get all of our feelers out into the community to find out as early as possible if there's any little pockets of infection that we don't know about, so that we can grab on and start doing our case and contact management and stop that transmission in its tracks before it starts to become a big thing.